you all so much for coming out tonight to this beautiful Palo Alto Networks campus. And now I'm really excited tonight to meet some of the people who work here.
We strongly believe that cultures create companies and not vice versa.
I really love this company and I want to tell you why. Every day I think about my children online and I think about their safety. I think about the importance of cyber security.
It takes a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds and expertise to come together and make a good security product.
We keep disrupting the market. We keep changing the market and changing the way the cybersecurity market works.
Hoping that tomorrow is going to be a little safer than today, so that the world that I leave to my kids and my legacy is much better than what I'm living.
But it is not just about what we do. What I really love about this company is how we do it.
My name is Angie, Chang, founder of Girl Geek X. I want to thank you all so much for coming out tonight to this beautiful Palo Alto Networks campus in sunny Santa Clara. And thank you so much to Palo Alto Networks for sponsoring. I've never been here, and the campus is amazing, and the space is beautiful. We've had so much fun meeting people here, checking out the demos, eating delicious food and drink, and now really excited tonight to meet some of the people who work here, talk about their expertise.
Angie's going to tell you this part, but I'm going to tell you. Okay, did you guys see all the cool stuff? So there's a photo booth here, over there, and you can do that. And then you can make a little flip book where you like move, and then they'll make you a little flip book on the spot. There's demos back there, which seem to be fabulously popular. Got the little cards. There are recruiters all over, so it seems awesome here, and it seems pretty awesome. Like the food's awesome, everything's awesome so far, right? Yes? Yes. Okay, so if you want to work here, they're also hiring. And then you can work with some of these amazing women that you see here tonight. So Girl Geek, we do these every week. Who's the first time here? Okay, cool. So we've been doing these for about 10 years. We've done over 200 of them. We do them every week now, up and down the peninsula in San Francisco. So if this is fun, make sure you're on the mailing list and come to the next ones. We also got a podcast we just got going. I think we're on like episode 8. What was it about? Tech stayers. Yes, don't leave. Tech stayers. But there's ones on like imposter syndrome and mentorship and career transitions and learning styles and just like, so check it out. It's on all of your usual podcasting places. And then let us know if you like it or what we can do to improve it, because we're not podcasters. We have no idea what we're doing. We're just kind of talking. Like I am right now. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for coming tonight. And I don't know who I'm turning this over to. Okay, let's welcome the man to the stage.
Thank you. Privileged to be here. Good evening, everyone. Really an honor to have all of you here. My name is Varun Badwar. Figured I'd just spend a few minutes sharing a little bit of my story. I'm 6 months or so new into Palo Alto Networks. Came in through an acquisition, actually. So, we recently, Palo Alto Networks acquired a company called Redlock. I was the founder CEO of that company. And, as a startup, one of the biggest things that makes you successful, brings the teams together, is really the culture, right? A lot of people, there's no product, there's very little in salary we can pay people, the office isn't as nice as this, but ultimately we join companies for the people we're gonna work with and really a grand vision of a problem we're gonna solve. And that problem for us was securing the cloud. And as you're doing that, and as you're sort of building, for those of you who are not familiar with cybersecurity, there's normally, in this industry, if you're successful, you likely end up getting acquired by potentially 6 or 7 companies that can do that. And for me, a lot of people have said, we were only 3 years into building Redlock, sort of how we ended up here, why did we make that decision? Ultimately, Palo Alto Networks, for those of you not very familiar with the company, has always been at the very top of that list for us for a couple of reasons. One is you're going to hear from our founder, Nir, and the team, just incredible pace at which Palo Alto Networks has disrupted the market, has taken a leadership position, now is the largest pure-play cybersecurity company on the planet. And more importantly, all of that has been done with only 6,000 people in the company. right? Larger companies in security have 80, 100,000 people. So for us, it's been fantastic. You come in, you get the best of feeling like a startup, operating really rapidly, yet having a culture, having values that are very startup-like. So, everything from empowerment for the teams, empowerment down to individuals working in this company, to I've just been fascinated with how important diversity has been to this company. And, obviously this is one small, commitment towards that. But, as I come in here and I'm asked to go work towards our annual conference, which is Ignite, that's happening next month, from the number of attendees, from our customers that are coming and tracking diversity statistics there, to how many speakers we're bringing to the table at these events, diversity there, diversity in hiring. And diversity obviously is about professional backgrounds. I mean, heck, if you look at our CEO, he never worked in cybersecurity before this. He came from Google, right? He's first timer in cybersecurity. So for those of you who say, hey, this feels like too geeky of a space, not really. I think we really appreciate diversity, whether you're coming from a consumer background, enterprise background, your again, race, ethnicities, values as well. So, I don't want to take up too much time here, just, articulating a couple of things. One, phenomenal company. We've loved the last 6 months. My teams tell me we are working harder than we did at a startup, but having a lot more fun. The fact that the values are so aligned to what I think a lot of us love probably in the companies we work for. And the intersection of just cybersecurity, and specifically for my part, cloud, is just so fascinating. It's a cat and mouse game in security. You're never done building products that work, well. You're always against forces that I'm sure maybe Nir will touch on. That's a good topic for him. That there's people that are putting more and more emphasis. Attackers are trying every which way to get into people's environments. They just need to be right once. We need to be right every time with the products that we build. Right? And so really an amazing career opportunity. Again, want to thank you all for coming here. Hopefully you're going to learn a lot about secure development, secure design, how security is just such a core part of development life cycles. And I will pass that over to Liane and Nir.
Hello, everybody. So I am the Chief People Officer of Palo Alto Networks, and honestly, I love moments like this, and I really love moments like this because I'm in the company of a lot of technical women, and I always feel, oh gosh, they're so much better than me. They've got all these skills I haven't got. They know how to code, they know how to build product, they know how to make things happen, and I work in HR. But I also think and feel very, very humble when I'm with technical women that it is also harder for women in technical jobs to come to work each and every day. It's harder for them than it is for me. When I walk through this door, I walk into a function and I'm surrounded by other women. I am not surrounded just by people who are different to me. So I don't carry that burden of being different as I walk through the door in the same way as many of you do, because you work as a minority in many of your teams. And so I'm doubly in awe, because you can do all these things and you have all these skills that I don't have, and you have that additional, not burden, but that additional concern of being different. Now, I have only been at this company for 7 months, a little like Varun, about the same time. And I joined this company, honestly, not really knowing much about this company. But truly, I have come to love this company with all my heart. I really love this company, and I want to tell you why. Partly it's this. I truly believe you have to work for a company that is doing good stuff. Every night I drive home and I turn on my radio and I feel just that little bit less safe. Every day I think about my children online who are bit bigger than your children, but I think of them online, and I think about their safety. And every day, particularly as a European, I think about the importance of cyber security. And I know I am working for the good guys. And I've got to tell you, that feels really very, very nice. But it is not just about what we do. What I really love about this company is how we do it. So when I first came here, I met my team, and the first thing they said to me is, we don't have D&I here. We don't have diversity and inclusion. And I'm like, whoa, it's a bit weird. And they said, no, we have inclusion and diversity. And I thought, yeah, that's a bit of a fad. You're just changing the words around. But I do want to impress something upon each and every one of you. Diversity and inclusion does not work. There is no point pulling in more underrepresented minorities into companies that can't change and make them feel welcome. There is no point pulling more women into technology if you can't make them feel like they can bring their whole selves to work each and every day. So for me, it's not the diversity agenda. It's about the inclusion agenda. And that is what Palo Alto Networks is going to be known for. That is what we are going to do that is different and unique. I don't believe there are companies in the Valley that have solved the diversity and inclusion issue. We all know we're spending a ton of money each and every year trying to encourage minorities, trying to encourage more women, trying to encourage difference, and we're failing. And we're failing, I realize now, because we're doing it wrong. It's about time we understand. Each and every person in this room, even if we're united largely in our gender, we are not the same. I am not the same as every other woman in this room. I am an individual. I am unique and I am special, as are each and every one of you. And that is what Palo Alto Networks is going to be about. It's going to be about, over the next couple of years, making sure that each and every individual that joins this company feels special, feels that they're doing amazing blooming work that will change this world, and work that will make everybody safe, and that we can all be whoever we want to be at work. And I think if we crack that, we've done something pretty damn good. So I'm not going to say much more to you. I am so glad that you're here. I am so glad that you can see everything that's wonderful. But I'm most glad for you that you can hear from our founder. In my career, I have worked with a number of founders, and I've got to tell you, it is not always a joy. They can be a little unusual. This time, it's an absolute and amazing joy, and I'd like to introduce Nia.
Thank you all for being here. So I'm Nia. I started this mess about 14 years ago. We got founded about 13 and a half years ago. We've been selling products for about 12 years. Like Varun said, we are the largest cybersecurity vendor in the world today, and we're also the largest cybersecurity business in the world. So even businesses inside other large companies are smaller than us. And these businesses have been around for 25, 30 years, sometimes even more than that. And you know, how does a company that's only been selling products for 13 years becomes larger than companies like Cisco and Juniper and Symantec and other large cybersecurity vendors? Of course, you do it through disruption, right? To disrupt the market, you completely change the market. And maybe I'll say a few words about disruption. The first thing about disruption is that it's kind of a weird thing. It's not like the way you disrupt the market is not by building a product and starting to sell it and then figuring out, wow, I disrupted the market. It's actually the other way around. You find the market that's ready for disruption, you find the reason why it's ready for disruption, and you address that. Right? If you think about it, some of the companies that you work with and a lot of the companies that have changed things like the taxi industry and the hospitality industry, and on the consumer side, and then companies that have changed the way we do HR and the way we do Salesforce management and CRM and the way we do IT operations and so on. They were all going into markets that have been doing the same thing again and again and again and again for many, many years, and found the reason to disrupt those markets, disrupted the markets, and have been successful at that. And we've done the same thing. And then, the next question that I always get asked is, how do you make sure that nobody comes behind and disrupts you? And it's not easy. And the thing about disruption is that when you face disruption, as a large company, it's very, very difficult to deal with that. It's very difficult to deal with disruption because you have two pretty much bad options. The first option you have is to embrace the disruption, meaning to say, well, this is very disruptive, everything I've done so far is irrelevant, let's embrace the disruption. The challenge, especially as a large company, as a publicly traded company and so on, is that really kills your business and you have to start again. Now, it's not that you start from scratch, but it's enough that your revenues go down 2-3% and you're done, right? So embracing disruption is hard because you have to start convincing the market that you are disruptive and you have to buy and sell them something new while they don't buy your old thing. And then you can fight the disruption, but if the disruption is real and true, then you're going to eventually end up staying behind, which is really what happened to our competitors when we started disrupting the market. They all fought the disruption. They all went through the 5 stages of first denial, right? Nobody needs it, and then we do it too, and then eventually it's okay, let's go and find something else to do. And to make sure that we don't get disrupted ourselves, the only logical way to do it is to disrupt ourselves. So keep looking why the market is ready for disruption and going and disrupting it at the risk of hurting your existing business, which we do. So we keep doing that all the time, and we don't have time to talk about it right now and today, but we keep disrupting the market. We keep changing the market and changing the way the cybersecurity market works. So I think that's the first thing that we've done. The second thing that's interesting about the cybersecurity market is that when we started, it was made of 2 types of companies. It was made of very large vendors. Again, I mentioned some names, right? Cisco and Symantec, and there's another company that I used to work for in the past called Checkpoint out of Israel, which is also a very large vendor in the industry. And there's McAfee, and Juniper used to be a large vendor in the industry, and there are a few others. And they all sell products that are very, very successful, but really aren't doing anything to secure their customers. Like they all sell products that we call firewalls. You probably heard about firewalls, and everybody knows that you need a firewall. It's just that firewall is not going to make anyone secure. Firewalls are not a security product, they're a hygiene product. Saying that the firewall is a security product is like saying that soap is going to make you healthy. It's a hygiene product. It's not going to make you sick, but it's not going to make you healthy and not going to prevent some or the most important diseases, right? And then, so that's one set of companies. And the other set of companies that we saw when we started the company 14 years ago was the innovative companies, the companies that actually do something for their customers to stop the bad guys and to make the world safer. But those companies just never took off. And there was this disconnect between the two, and part of it is because it's very hard for customers, especially very hard for organizations to tell what's working and not working, what's not working. Like how are you going to evaluate a cybersecurity product? They're going to hire a bunch of hackers and pay them a lot of money and go create an attack against yourself and then see if the product. Nobody does that, right? So usually you get a script from the vendor and you follow the script, and guess what? It works, right? So when we started the company, we decided to be different. We decided that we're going to build a product that is both going to be big and is going to actually do something for our customers. And that's part of our culture. And there are other things in our culture that I think are very important, but I think, and I'll talk about them in a second, but I think the most important thing in our culture, or about culture, is that we strongly believe is that cultures create companies and not vice versa. Meaning it's the culture that you have when you start a company, and if you work really hard and make sure it doesn't change much, it's the culture that you have over the years that's creating your company versus your company creating a culture. Okay? And if your culture is to be disruptive, then you're going to be disruptive. And if your culture is going to be, you're going to invest in sales and marketing to convince the world that the products that you build that aren't doing anything actually do something, then that's going to be your culture. And there are a few very important things that we created in the culture of the company that I think have brought us to where we are. Again, the largest vendor in the cybersecurity industry, and we're also growing much faster than everyone else. There are areas where we're by far the largest vendor, where there are areas where we're bigger than everybody else combined. So doing really well, and again, it's our culture. And it's things like being disruptive. It's things like we don't solve simple problems. Meaning, if there's something in cybersecurity that we think someone else is already doing well, or we don't know how to do better than them, then we're not going to do it. Customers keep asking me, why aren't you doing distributed denial of service protection, whatever that means, right? Because I just don't know how to do it better than others that are doing it today. They ask me, why aren't you doing web application firewalling? I just don't know how to do it better than others, so why would I do that? Okay? So the things that we do here are things that we know how to do better, or we think at least we know how to do better than everyone else. And that's in our culture. Like when we make a decision whether to do something or not, that's a very important criteria, right? And there are other important criteria. So that's one part of our culture. The other part of our culture is to always do the right thing for the customer. Now, of course, every company that you work for will say that they are doing the right thing for the customer. But as an example that I used just a moment ago, if you invest in sales and marketing to convince your customers that the stuff that doesn't work, doesn't do much for your customers actually does, then that's not your culture. Your culture is not to do the right thing for the customer. And so for us to do the right thing for the customer, I think the way we think about it, the way we present it is we only do things that we can be proud of. Okay, I cannot be proud of selling a customer a product that doesn't do what the customer thinks that the product does. So we're just not going to do that. And we're going to do the right things so that we are proud of what we do, so that customers eventually will get the benefit of the product. And that's very important for us. Another area that's very important for us is self-awareness. Okay, many companies just aren't self-aware when it comes to the issues that they have, whether in their structure or in their products or in whatever it is, and we are very, very self-aware. I mean, I'm not going to, of course, wash the dirty laundry here, but in meetings, we always talk about the issues that we have. We always talk about competitive issues that we have. We always talk about organizational issues. We always talk about the different things that are going to make us not successful or are making us not successful in some areas. And we're very self-aware of that, and we fix them. We certainly don't kill the messenger. We promote the messenger here and take care of that. And those are important things that just don't exist in many companies. And when you look back 14 years ago and we look at the set of companies that we compete against today, they just have a very, very different culture than we have today. And the last thing, which you've already heard, that's important for us in the culture is diversity. And it's diversity, not just gender diversity, which is very important. I think among the first 25 employees of the company, about a quarter, between a fifth and a quarter, were women. But it's not just gender, it's also other underrepresented minorities. It's also diversity as to where people come from in terms of the companies that they come from. Right? We don't just hire from two companies, we hire from as many different companies as possible, so we get as many different opinions as we can. When we think about diversity, we think about diversity across everything, and it's really an important part of our culture. Like if you walk around and you see the list of things that are in our culture, which are posted in various areas of our buildings, that's one of them. Being diverse is very, very important for us. And we just think that it makes us better, and it makes us build better products for our customers. Okay? And maybe the last thing I want to talk about is, like Liane said, not too many people know about Palo Alto Networks, especially if you're not in the enterprise space and not in cybersecurity space. You don't know much about Palo Alto Networks, other than maybe you every now and then you hear about our financials or things like that. But if I look at the things that we're proud of and the things that are somewhat unique to us, We are one of we have one of the largest infrastructures in the world, or certainly building one of the largest infrastructures in the world. Cybersecurity is becoming more and more, and that's something we're driving, but it's becoming more and more a data problem. And the amount of data that you need to deal with in order to find the bad guys and stop them, it's just unbelievably huge. We're talking, I mean, if we today had to collect or were able to collect all the data that we need from our customers, we're talking about several billions of events per second. Okay, this is the kind of infrastructure that we need to build. And we're talking about many exabytes of data in order to make our customers secure. I mean, I'm not saying we're there yet, but that's something that we need to build, and over the next few years we need to build. So cybersecurity is becoming a data problem, and we're leading that. So we're a very large infrastructure company. One of the things that we've done, and one of the disruptions that we brought to the market, is we have transformed the cybersecurity market from a market where you buy a lot of products. A typical organization and typical enterprise will have dozens and sometimes more than 100 different cybersecurity products that they deploy in their infrastructure. We transformed it into a market that's delivered via SaaS. Okay, so that's another thing that's important about Palo Alto Networks. And yeah, there's also the cybersecurity aspects. You don't need to be a cybersecurity expert to work at Palo Alto Networks. The number of people here that actually know cybersecurity, probably 200 or 300 of our employees actually are cybersecurity experts. All the rest are data experts and service delivery experts and operations experts, and of course that's in the engineering department, and we have many other organizations within the company. Okay, so that's what I had to say. I'll stick around if you have some questions. We don't have time for questions right now, and I guess next one is Citlalli. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Citlalli Solano Leonce. I am a director of engineering here at Palo Alto Networks. I do software development, and I really couldn't be more proud of having you guys here tonight. So a little bit about myself. So let me share a little bit of my story. I grew up in Mexico City. Back in the day, there were no cell phones, no tablets, no flat, TV screens, no nothing, right? No internet even. And I remember vividly how my mom would take me with her to the bank, right? Like the old, big computers with black screens and green, letters and characters going around. And I always wonder what is happening behind. Like how can that person type something and then some magic happens, right? So fast forward a little bit, I got, that's what got me into computer science. And finally, right out of college, my first job was at the central bank in Mexico. So my dream come true. I was able to understand what was happening behind the scenes, but there was a slight difference back then. And it's that I was not only understanding what was happening, but I was in the driver's seat. So here I am, 21, 22-year-old, building systems for my country. So I was developing in C++, and my modules eventually ended up in the payment systems. So now people are able to transfer money from one bank to another immediately. And I was paving the way for the digital transformation of my own country. So that was, at that time, probably I didn't realize the impact. But looking back, it's like, really, I was a key player there. So fast forward a little more. And here I am, standing in front of all of you in the middle of the Silicon Valley, right? A day in the life, you wake up, your phone, plays a nice tune for you. With the Internet of Things, you can have your coffee machine make coffee for you, and then you wake up to the very nice smell of coffee beans. You can say, Alexa, play What's the Weather Today? What's my stock options? You take your car, the car drives you wherever you want, right, Meghana? So, it's amazing, right? Like all this transformation, I can't believe I have been fortunate enough to live, this revolution, right? But there's another side to that. So what is happening with all of that? Now we all have our lives in the digital world. Raise of hands, how many of you do your banking online? Probably everybody, right? How many of you, do video gaming, or your kids do video gaming? right? Now even that is online. Some of us are doing this DNA test, 23andMe, okay? And then we can, share and maybe we're cousins, we're third cousins or whatever, right? That's amazing. But where do you think all this data is going? Everything is hosted in the cloud, right? We are leaving our digital fingerprint over there. And it's not only the data, these services themselves are deployed in the cloud. They're either running in AWS, Azure, GCP, who knows, right? So amazing, but we also have a big responsibility. Everything is interconnected. How do we prevent the bad guys from getting that? It's not only just your little blog post, it's now your financial information, it's now your DNA information, right? Who knows what's gonna happen in a few years? So let's look at how we are developing those very systems. And something that Nir was referring to, it's not only about cybersecurity and cybersecurity professionals, right? We at Palo Alto Networks happen to make software that secures the enterprise, but security is responsibility of everybody. Who is building that 23andMe mobile app? Probably one of us, right? Who is building those banking applications? One of us, right? So what are we doing to prevent that from being vulnerable? It shouldn't be an afterthought, and it's now the job of the InfoSec guys. And Archana here, who specializes in InfoSec, can tell you a lot more about the security practices, but that should start before. So looking at this SDLC, it's something that probably very, very familiar to many of you. So what do you think here is missing? Any ideas? So we have the planning, we have architecture and design, implementation, testing, deployment, maintaining. Anything that is missing here? Security. So where do you think security should go? Like what circle are we missing? Where do you think that goes? Everywhere, yeah. Oh, you guys are too good for me. So yeah, so spoiler alert. So yes, security is everywhere. It's not QA should test for security. And Meghana can tell you a lot more about all our QA security practices, but this goes before, even as we are designing. Paddy here also will talk to you about product management, but it's everybody's responsibility. Now, so kind of circling back, we are living in this amazing world. We have all these services at our fingertips, right? Everybody's, not only ours, our kids, everybody's. But also we have a big responsibility. I personally love working here because I really identify with our mission of securing our digital way of life. I truly believe that. And as the previous presenters were saying, it's truly a responsibility, and we are hoping for a better world one day after another. I'm hoping that tomorrow is going to be a little safer than today, so that the world that I leave to my kids and my legacy is much better than what I'm living right now. So I invite you all to adopt security as your own, and let's build a secure world together. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Meghana Dwarakanath. I'm the Software Quality Assurance Manager for Public Cloud Security here at Palo Alto Networks. Now, I have been able to contribute across 3 different products here at Palo Alto Networks. Wildfire, which is our malware detection as a service. Aperture, which is our data loss prevention as a service for SaaS applications. And now with public cloud security product, Redlock. I'm sure you all know already all about it with all the demos you have attended. So how did I get started? I like to tell people that I worked my way up the networking stack. I started off in CDMA, then IP, TCP, HTTP, finally landed in the cloud, and out of pure curiosity, took a right turn into security. This is a story you'll hear a lot more from people who are working here, because initially when you think security, or at least when I heard about security, the first thing that comes to your mind is some Mission Impossible scene. There's like a lot of screens, hackers. But then working here, I came to know it takes a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds and expertise to come together and make a good security product. Now, if you take my team, for example, I have people from DevOps background. I have people from dev background. Of course, QA background. Security company experiences, non-security company experiences. And with all those different perspectives, we are able to build a much more secure and successful QA process, which is what I'm going to talk about today. One of the axioms in security is you're only as strong as your weakest link. Now let me ask all of you something. What do you think is the weakest link in your companies? Maybe you don't want to say it out loud, but the answer should be nothing. We are all strong, we're all doing good, and we're great, right? Now, of course, when it comes to our production environments, we are very gung-ho about protecting them, and we should be, because it has our customer data, it has our reputations, and it needs the protection. By the time we come to our QA environment, that kind of tapers a bit, right? Why? Because you're thinking it's QA. We don't have customer data in there, hopefully. And, it's an afterthought. We really don't think about it. But if you really think about the challenges we have and the kind of products we are testing today, we need to think about why we need to secure QA environments. Because when somebody gets to your QA environment, there are a lot more things they can get out of it apart from customer data. For example, they can get an insight into your system internals. They can figure out how your systems and services are talking to each other, and you're literally helping them make a blueprint to attack your production environment. You have proprietary code, of course, that is running in your QA and staging environments. And so there's a potential loss of intellectual property there. Again, hopefully you don't have customer data in your QA environments. I really hope you don't. Because here at Palo Alto Networks, the InfoSec team, Archana will tell you more, will find out, come, hunt you down, and take that down. And then, of course, if you're the unfortunate victim of something like a Bitcoin mining attack, you get a very massive bill at the end of the month, a very, very unpleasant surprise, right? This is just your test environment. What is the other aspect of testing? Test automation, right? And now, anybody who is testing a SaaS service will tell you they test against production. Every time you release, you want to make sure that your production is doing okay, all the features are doing okay. So what do? You run your test automation against production, which means your test automation now has credentials that can access your production environment. You probably have privileged access because you want to see better what you're testing. And now you're co-located next to customer data, which is potentially a very unsafe mix. So how do you do this securely? One of the ways we have been able to do this successfully here is to consider test as yet another microservice that is running in your production. So all those production microservices that you deploy, test is just another one of them. How do your microservices store credentials? That is exactly how your test automation will store credentials. The same SDLC process that Citlalli talked about, where security is not an afterthought, the same thing applies to your test automation code as well. You deploy monitoring for your test automation services, just like you would do for your production services. And then, whatever deployment automation you have, your IS automation code you have, you fit test deployment into the same very architecture, and now you have all the added protections that your production microservices are getting. Now, there are a lot of fun new QA testing concepts, right? A/B testing, blue-green testing, how do you test a slow roll? With this, we are able to be in every single stack we deploy, test continuously, and get continuous feedback about our test and production environments. Now, we have the right people, we have the right mindset, we have the right intentions. We just want to ensure that our intentions have the right impact. So what do? We just happen to have a set of world-class microservices at our disposal. So we dog food our own environments, which means, for example, all my test environments are monitored by Redlock to see if we have any security vulnerabilities there so that I can immediately know about them and then I can make sure they're secure, right? And this is kind of a win-win situation, of course, because we are in this cycle of continuous feedback. We tell how the product is doing, the product is securing us. Now, from this talk, I really want all of you to have two takeaways from this. One, of course, to really go and think about how your QA practices are they secure, and what needs to be done to make them secure. And the second thing is to realize that we are in an ever-changing landscape, and there are different and new challenges, right? So we have to continuously rethink our role and what we need to do in our roles to be successful. Now, this mindset is not only encouraged here at Palo Alto Networks, it is expected. And that is what I love the most about working here. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Archana Muralidharan. I work as Principal Technical Risk Management here at Palo Networks InfoSec Department. I'm the same Archana who a lot of people refer to now. I feel more responsible now to deliver what exactly we do pertaining to product security here. Before we get into the specifics of how we do stuff at Palo Networks, let me kind of share with you some fun facts about me. I was born and raised in Chennai, a city in southern part of India, where the weather is really hot all through the year, 365 days a year. There are only 3 seasons, according to us: hot, hotter, and hottest. So there are no 4 seasons that are known to us. So if you ever see me wearing a jacket when it is 70 degrees outside, you know why it is. And my childhood dream was to actually become, any guesses? Was a Bollywood singer. Honestly, I still learn Indian classical music just for the fact that I couldn't become one. But destiny was something else. I completed my engineering and I ended up becoming a software engineer. It was by accident, I would say, that I got into information security, because I didn't even know what it was like 12, 13 years ago when I started my career in InfoSec. After having been in InfoSec for so long, I really, really love the domain. It is so interesting because it kind of throws a unique set of challenges and problems for us to solve. Now that we heard a lot of our leaders, Citlalli, Meghana, kind of touching upon how important is security to be incorporated as part of STLC, let me dive deep into that. So there are some debates here and there in terms of the actual estimates, but all research does confirm the cost and time involved to remediate a vulnerability grows exponentially over the different phases of STLC. And that's why it's really important for us to start thinking about security during the initial phases. And especially when we are developing a cybersecurity product, we want to be doubly sure, triply sure, overcautious sometimes to ensure the way we develop stuff makes us really secure, because we have commitment to protect the digital way of life. Our approach here at Palo Alto Networks is to embed security as part of every phase of STLC, like how you just heard from a lot of the speakers who spoke previous to me. As part of requirements, we kind of make it a point that we collect security requirements as an NFR, meaning non-functional requirement, in addition to the normal performance-related requirements. And we ensure that they are understood, well documented, so that we could potentially prevent a lot of vulnerabilities creeping downstream. As part of design phase, we from InfoSec work very closely with the product architects to understand the architecture and review it from a security perspective to ensure to look for all possible attacks, incorporate possible mitigations well in time to prevent design flaws that could otherwise result in vulnerabilities in the product. And as part of build phase, we primarily do two activities. The first one being static code analysis, where we look for vulnerabilities and remediate in the custom code what we develop as part of product development. And the second piece being kind of using this open source vulnerability assessment tools to figure out the vulnerabilities in the open source libraries and frameworks what we use in our product. Because it's really important that we understand what we sign up for. During testing phase, we do something called as application penetration testing to find vulnerabilities that were missed as part of build phase. For instance, when we do static code analysis during build phase, the code doesn't run really. It is static. So when more components are integrated and come together, there could be a possibility of more vulnerabilities, which we typically find specifically targeting areas, some of the stuff like business logic errors, privilege escalation, which no static analysis tool can find as of today. And as part of deployment, we perform deployment architecture review. This is very similar to what we do as part of design phase. The only reason is because we are in the agiles, we follow agile frameworks, we build stuff so fast, there is always a chance that we may miss the actual design, what was approved versus the actual design, what gets deployed finally may differ, and we want to be really sure that the final architecture, what gets deployed, is indeed what was approved. Finally, I'm very sure all of us would be aware and agree that security is not a point-in-time concept. So it's a continuous process. So we monitor, we scan our product environments for vulnerabilities in infrastructure, web application, APIs, cloud configuration, so forth and so on, and remediate those vulnerabilities well in time. Aside from that, there could be a situation where a vulnerability is out in the market, but it's not part of your scanning cycle. So we don't want such vulnerabilities to be executed and end up kind of being in a breach situation. So we use runtime application self-protection to detect those vulnerabilities and block it from getting executed during runtime. So these are all the activities that precisely we do as part of software development lifecycle, and we take security really very serious. Now, before I wrap up, I want to share why do I love working for Palo Networks. Kind of trying to give a basic, I would like to share my personal story when I interviewed with Palo Networks. So having been in consulting for 10 plus years, the very idea that I'm going to work for a cybersecurity product company really thrilled me, really excited me. I applied for a job, I went for an interview, everything went well. And always we have this feeling that we could have done probably a little better. Any of you think like that after any interview? I felt the same. But all well, I get a call from the hiring manager. They were very appreciative of all the great qualifications what I have. And I was super excited. I thought I almost got the job, But there was a slight twist to it. I did not get the job. They felt I was not a right fit for that job. Instead, they offered me a totally different job, which in their opinion, they believe that that'll be a better fit for me. As you all are confused now, I was completely lost and confused because never in my career of 15 plus years there was ever a situation where something like this happened. It is always either an yes or a no. With a lot of confusion, I agreed. I accepted the offer. Glad that I made that decision. No regrets whatsoever after that. It has been a great learning experience here. The reason why I'm sharing this with you today is to re-emphasize that teams here at Palo Alto Networks think very differently to solve a problem statement. And that's what makes this place unique and a great place to work. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Archana. Hi, everyone. Very good evening to all of you. I'm Paddy Narasimha. I'm a product manager on the Cortex team, an engineer turned product manager. That's a very brief introduction about me. And I'm here to talk about the perspective of PMing at Palo Alto Networks. And what does that mean? So you heard from a development manager's perspective, QA, and InfoSec perspective, and now this is the PM perspective. But before I go into the details, I want to go over what does a PM do, and then what does a security PM do, and finally, why is it fun working here at Palo Alto Networks? Many of you might have seen this image. So this is a classic image where you see different perspectives for the exact same element. And here, the element is elephant. So what a PM does is basically intuit what a customer wants. And so let me go over that with an example. So let's say customer A comes to you and they say, I have certain data set and I want only the senior management to actually have access to that data set. Okay, great. As a PM, you make a note of it and you say, okay, this is probably how I'm going to build that feature. But in the meanwhile, customer B comes to you and says, I have a data set, but I only want my support engineers to access that data set. And you go, okay, that's also great, and I can build a feature for that. Imagine if you were a PM and you were to build a feature that satisfies that, customer A, and another feature that actually satisfies customer B. Do you think that's going to be sustainable? Because it's very soon you are going to run into a situation where there's going to be dozens of customers or probably even hundreds of customers asking for something very similar, saying different people need to have access to it. So that is where you as a PM come into a picture and where you actually help draw this elephant. And in this particular case, you could solve this problem by building something called a role-based access control, for example, where you can actually have a common solution that would satisfy both customer A, customer B, as well as thousands of customers who could have the same need in the future. And role-based access control, just a brief introduction, is basically setting up roles which are privileges. And those privileges tell you what users have access to and what they don't have access to. And you can assign these privileges to users. So that is one way of solving this problem. And this is what a PM typically does. The other important aspect is that PM also helps understand teams, the big picture. So for example, different teams, when they're building different features, what they see is just a tiny part of it and probably an isolated view of that feature because they might only be integrating with one more team or in some cases just a couple more teams. So they'll have a very isolated view of the world. So a PM's job is to step in and actually help draw the elephant where you tell teams that, hey, this is what we're building. And here is how your piece is going to fit in. So that's the job of a PM. That said, what does a security PM do? So a security PM does all of what I mentioned and a little more. So the first factor is security actually takes time. It's not a 1 or 0 or okay, let's do this feature or let's not do this feature. There's a cost to it. So as a PM, what you do is typically you try to figure out how to build a secure product. And if building a secure product, let's say you can only ship 5 features in a product instead of 10 features, then so be it. Because that would actually make your product a lot more secure because you're able to spend more time on security-related features. Next is it's actually an investment. And by that, what I mean is it pays in the future. Let me explain that with an example. So many of you might have heard two-factor authentication. It is basically you put in your password as well as another factor for authenticating yourself.
We all know 2FA is important. And many online services and companies and online accounts offer 2FA. But how many of you go turn it on? Or how many companies even go turn it on? So even though this is a new feature, and explain it to the customers as to why this is important, we actually go ahead and build this feature and explain it to the customers as to why this is important. Because this is going to protect them from the ever-evolving threat landscape. And pushing this feature out in the next 10 years or so is not really going to benefit our customers. And that's where you make that trade-off. Next is, it is ongoing. So let's say as a PM, you decide that your product is reasonably secure. So you put the secure stamp on it, you ship it out into the world. And that's it, your job is done. No, it's not. Because security is constantly ongoing and you have to evaluate, is your product continuing to secure your customers? Is there more to it? So if I were to extend the 2FA example, what I would be doing for the ongoing aspect of it is to now figure out, maybe I should be offering multi-factor authentication instead of just two-factor authentication, because that is how I am going to protect my customers from the ever-evolving threat landscape. Moving on to why PMing at Palo Alto Networks. So security up and down the stack. Because Palo Alto Networks, we have a wide suite of products that different speakers alluded to earlier. We have firewalls, so ranging from the physical devices up to the cloud, we have a whole suite of security products. So if you were to join as a PM or in any role here, you would actually get to work across the stack of products. Product-oriented engineering is another factor where we don't just start to build products because some customer came and told us, hey, this feature is cool and I would like to see this feature in my product. That's not how we go about it. Everything that we build here at Palo Alto Networks start with a problem statement. So PMs sit down and write a very cohesive problem statement. We start our process from there. And with that problem statement, what we do is we actually sit together with the PM teams and we go over that problem statement and we convince ourselves, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right problem that we would need to solve? Is this the right thing for our customers? So we attack that problem from different perspectives to make sure that we're actually going after a problem that really needs to be solved. So that is another factor that I really like. And the last one here, everyone here wants to do the right thing. Palo Alto Networks is a pretty large organization. We have several different teams. So if you think about it, different teams have their own ways of doing things. They have different priorities and they have different incentives too. But in a lot of cases when we have to work together, there is going to be conflict. But it's really easy to work together because everyone in the room really wants to do the right thing. And that is the biggest reason why I really enjoy working here. With that, I'm done, and so are all the speakers. We really want to thank every one of you for coming here and spending your evening with us. Thank you all. We'll be hanging out here, so happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you once again.